Hello class, welcome to lesson 6 in module 4 where we're going to be learning about writing and expanding multiplication expressions. Alright, so this is a pretty long one. We're going to cut it into 3 chunks. You can start the first chunk there. Go ahead and pause it and copy. Alright, the next chunk we will have here. And finally, the last third, take a look, give you a little bit of context here. We'll start there. Obvious, however, don't write anything above here because you've already copied that. Alrighty. So today's lesson, like we said, we're going to learn how to write and expand multiplication expressions. We're also going to learn how to simplify them. But that's just solving it. So anyway, whoops. Let's take a look at our question and jump right in. How can I write multiplication expressions differently? So we're trying to come up with different ways to write the same expression. Your answer looks like this. You can either simplify or expand multiplication expressions by removing and including the symbols. Like the X symbol means multiply and the dot symbol means multiply. Okay, so we can make things bigger by including them, and we can make things smaller by removing them and actually doing the math. So a couple things to remember when we are learning how to write these mathematical expressions. Similar to last lesson when we talked about writing addition and subtraction, we had to review some vocabulary. The word product means the answer to a multiplication problem. So whenever you see product, we know it's talking about the answer, and we know it's talking about multiplication. Now, below that, we see factor, and factor just refers to the numbers that you're multiplying together, okay? So if we've got a simple multiplication problem over here, let's say we've got 2 times 3 equals 6, okay? 6 is your product, and the 2 and 3 are examples of factors because those are the things you're multiplying together. Okay, so back to the notes. If we want to expand a mathematical expression, so here we're going to be expanding it, what we're going to do is we're going to be making a multiplication expression longer by including multiplication symbols. And if that sounds confusing, we have an example of it down below that we'll get to. But expanding just means, obviously, make it longer by including the symbols and the factors. Below that, we see the steps or the explanation on how to simplify. So when we are simplifying an expression, we are multiplying the factors, combining the variables, and removing the multiplication symbols. The way that we remove the multiplication symbols is we actually multiply factors. So step 1, we multiply the factors. Step 2, we combine the variables. Step 3, we remove the multiplication symbols. Okay? And in doing this, we can simplify or shorten our expression. So we do this in order to shorten a multiplication expression. So let's take a look at an example that covers all of these new things that we've learned. So example number 1, which we start with, it's going to be our building block. It says to create an expression for these words, product of 6n and 4g doubled. So right away, just like in last lesson, we need to identify the values. So we've got 6n, 4g, and something funny over here. It says doubled. Okay, so we know that those are the values we're working with. And the type of problem we're working with is given away when it shows us the word product. We know product means to multiply. So it looks like we're going to be multiplying the 6n, 4g, and in order to double something, I think we know that you multiply it by 2. So like if you have $5 and you want to double it, you times it by 2 to get 10. Okay, so to double something, you multiply it by 2. So now that we've figured out what type of problem we're going to do and what values we need to multiply to get that, here is what we come up with. 6n times 4g times 2 equals 48ng. Okay, so what we've done here is we multiplied the 6 and the 4 to get 24, and then multiplied 24 by 2 to get 48. Okay, so we've created the expression from the word problem. If we wanted to expand an expression, however, here we've got example number 2 where we're going to be expanding a multiplication expression. We see a simplified version of 3n times 4g. This one's pretty simple. All you need to do, like from the description above, so I don't know if you remember this description, we just make an expression longer by including the multiplication symbols. So if we come down here, the expression is 3n times 4g. We know that 3n really means 3 times n, and 4g means 4 times g, so we have 3 times n times 4 times g. So we've just made it a little bit bigger, expanded it somewhat. And in our last example, we are going to do the opposite of that by simplifying an expression that's already been expanded. Okay, so our expression looks like this. 2 times n times 3 times g times 5 times a. Alrighty. Now the steps we took, if you recall, for simplifying an expression looks like this. We need to multiply the factors, step 1, combine the variables, step 2, and remove the multiplication symbols. So let's do step 1 first. We need to multiply the factors, if you see that up there. So our factors here, I'll circle, factors are 2, 3, 5. Those are the values that we know that we can multiply. So we've got 2 times 3 times 5. Step 1, multiply factors. 2 times 3 is 6, 6 times 5 is 30, so that we know that our numbers that we're going to be working with, 2 times 3 times 5 is going to be 30. So our value of the factors multiplied are 30. And then step 2, if you recall from up here, was to combine the variables. So down below, we have step 2, combine the variables. The variables we have that are left over are n, g, and a. So we just throw those together. This just means combine the variables, n times g times a. Remember, when you have letters, you can just butt them right up next to each other, butt them right up next to a number to represent multiplication. So n times g times a really just means nga. So we take our 30, we take our nga, we've removed all of the multiplication symbols, and we put them together. 30 nga is the same thing as 2 times n times 3 times g times a. So I know that was a long one. Hopefully we were tracking there and we can follow these steps when posed with these types of a problem. And at this point, I hope that we at least know how to start to answer this question. How can I write multiplication expressions differently? Thank you very much, and goodbye.